All right, episode faux show. It's
Here
David
we
and
are.
Pam. Yeah, Strong by Lee and Power by Pam. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. What's up, Pam? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just another day in quarantine.
Another day in quarantine. TGIF doesn't
Groundhog
even.
Day. But 2020 is almost over, so
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah. TGIF doesn't even matter anymore.
I
All the
know,
days are just
seriously.
blending together. All right, so
Friday, but
we're
it feels like Thursday and Wednesday and Sunday. So
Word. I have to be careful thinking about, oh man, 2021 is going to be better because Mother Nature might not give a crap
no,
about.
I'm not even gonna say that. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
say that eventually things will have to get better. So we'll see. We'll see
yeah,
what the
we'll
year
see. Hey,
brings.
look, take it day by day. Otherwise, we'll get
I know.
overwhelmed with negativity if we think about the future too much.
Yeah, yep. Oh, I know that.
Word. Okay, episode 4. We're going to talk about 3 major things today. We're going to talk about mindset, in particular, growth, fixed mindset. We're going to talk about the difference between weight and fat loss. I feel like this is going to be pretty self-explanatory and
Yeah.
straightforward, but it's worth mentioning faux show because this is an issue we talked about a lot while we were working together. And then
Yes.
we're going to talk about the inner critic, why we're so difficult on ourselves. And I think we all have an inner critic. Some of us have a much stronger inner critic than others. I think it's very interesting to talk about that, especially since that is something you struggled with for a while,
Yeah,
right?
very badly.
All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about, fixed versus growth mindset. Now, this is a concept I am pretty familiar with. It was popularized by an early childhood researcher by the name of Carol Dweck. She is a researcher at Stanford University. She has a book out for layman's called Mindset. Mindset was based on she's an extremely prolific researcher. She puts out all sorts of studies, but that book was based on a collection of essays and other studies that she did with other researchers. This is the book. It's called Self Theories. She talks about really her research is grounded in early childhood psychology, motivation, and what's called self-determination theory, and how that forms someone's personality. Right? Because
Mhm.
we're at the point right now where many people realize our early childhood experiences and interactions can have a massive impact on who we become as an adult. And that's
Yeah.
why so many people are different, right? Because one experience can change the trajectory of someone's life.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to touch on the differences between the fixed and the growth mindset, what differentiates them, how to spot them, and what we can do to get into the growth mindset a little bit more, because ideally that is the mindset that we want to be in most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. So we did a little bit of research before we did this because we kind of hashed out what type of talking points we're going to go over. Why don't you go? Let's start with you. What are your thoughts? You're a teacher. So
Yeah.
this is right up your alley. How do you approach the concept of mindset?
So, there's the fixed mindset and there's the growth mindset. So when you have a fixed mindset, that's a kind of person that's like, I'm never gonna get better. I can't do this. I don't like being outside of my comfort zone. I say no to challenges. They're less likely to take risks. And even kind of like if you go in terms of the inner critic, which we're going to touch on later, they definitely have a harsher inner critic because they're kind of like, oh, I could never do that. I can't do that. I could never be that strong. I could never be that fit and in shape, or I could never, learn this skill. Whereas someone with a growth mindset, they're open to challenges, they're open to trying new things, they believe in themselves. And it's just like the title, growth mindset, they're interested in growing themselves. And so I do think that it's like relatively easy to identify someone that has a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I would say that for myself, for a long time, I was more of a fixed mindset person. oh, I could never do this. I could never do that. I could never be X, Y, and Z, and then late 20s comes around. Now that I'm in my early 30s, I feel like I've adapted to way more of a growth mindset. One key example was, while training with you, I just decided, hey, I'm going to run a half marathon. And the way that came about was that I mean, when I trained with you and prior to that, I never ran, maybe like a 5K, 3 miles, right? And I had a friend who is a marathon runner, and he said to me, I'm doing a 10K, which is 6 miles. Why don't you do it with me? You could do it. You're in shape. So I was like, okay, why not? So I was open to that challenge, right? I knew it was going to be kind of difficult because I didn't know if I could run. I didn't know how far I could run. And then there I was, I did it. And I was like, I'm going to run a half marathon. And then I did. And I trained for it for a little bit. And, I went and I did it. And probably one day I'll do another one. But had I not pushed myself, right? Had I not had, you're laughing at me. I don't know why. Why are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing because you're going to understand why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you say, oh, I trained for it, but literally you ran for like 2 months before this half
Yeah, no, I
marathon.
did.
Like
I
people
mean, I have to
train
be
for
honest,
like
I didn't. I
people
didn't
train for
train for it.
years. People
Yeah, no,
train for
I was
years,
like,
and you're just like, you know what? I remember you coming up to me one day, it's like, I'm gonna run a half marathon. I was like, what? Have you ever ran a 10? Have you ever ran a 10K before? It's like, no. It's like, why would you run a half? No. He's like, I ran one 10K, and it was pretty comfortable. I was like, okay, so now I'm gonna go from running 6 miles to 13. I was like,
yeah,
all right, Pam. Like, look, you're strong. You've got the leg strength. I know the strength can push you through. I guess the one thing we have to make sure you have is your endurance, your lung capacity, and your stamina. And you
I had
told me
a
your time, and I was like, what the heck? Are you kidding me? You barely
lo and
trained for this
behold,
thing.
yeah,
That's why I'm laughing.
yeah, well, so yes, that did happen. But the whole thing was is that if I didn't have that growth mindset, right? If I wasn't open to that challenge, and that's just like one example of, you know, multiple different things that have happened. But if I hadn't had that growth mindset of like, hey, you know what, I could do this. I believe in myself. Because even my friends were like, what? You're crazy. You don't run. Like you're what are you doing? And I was like, no, like I got this. Like, don't worry. But that's kind of how I do approach a lot of different things that people will think that some of my ideas are a little bit crazy. And then I'm just like, no, don't worry. I got it. Because I believe in myself. I mean, just like with doing this, I believe in myself. But let's say that I had a fixed mindset and my friend had approached me and he said, I really want you to run this 10K with me because you're fit and in shape and I think you could run. And I said, no, I'm not doing that with you because I can't do it. I can't. I'm not a runner. I can't run. I hate running. It's like on what basis do I have to say that? I haven't ran ever long enough to be able to determine that. And I've never tried, I never tried. So I didn't know until I tried and I did and I succeeded. But I think having a growth mindset is extremely important when you are trying to get your nutrition and your fitness on par, because there are going to be so many times where you are pushed outside of your comfort zone, right? And that you are challenged, whether that's with nutrition, like with cravings or trying new food or, trying to get the meal prep down packed, or with fitness. I mean, working with you, I mean, what an experience of being pushed outside of my comfort zone and challenging myself, and you saw times where I had a fixed mindset, like, David, what are you talking about? I can't lift that amount of weight. I can't do that. And you were just like, dude, it's a mental game. Get out of your head. Stop like having that fixed mindset that you can't do it. And so circling back to teaching is that, when I hear my students say I can't, that's when I'm just like, no, don't ever say that. And don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't, because you can. And I will sit there with them until they can. And then, and that joy, that's when they like realize that's almost like they're breaking a barrier. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that I could reach that reading level. So it takes a lot to be able to, switch your mindset. That's something that's a work in progress, still a work in progress for me. But it slowly has happened over the years. And because of that, I have welcomed many new opportunities in my life. because of having more of that growth mindset, that it's okay to be comfortable. It's okay to be challenged. It's okay if you fail too. Because as long as you keep trying, then that's what counts.
You make some really good points. You spoke a lot about the growth mindset, and for the most part, the growth mindset is something we want. Based on what I know about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, it's a fluid, dynamic spectrum. Like you said, one day you can be in the growth mindset. Let's say, for example, in running, one day you have a good run and you're in a growth mindset because you gain confidence. You think to yourself, oh, I can do this. I'm going to run a little bit more. But then you have a poor running day, and that can possibly increase your chances of getting back into a fixed mindset. So even somebody who is really proficient and adept at any particular skill, let's say, for example, as a teacher or as a personal trainer, we might have a couple of bad days and we're just like, what are we doing wrong? Right. And we're not always going to be in that growth mindset. It's fluid, right? It really depends on our mood. It depends on what's going on in our lives. I would even say that many people nowadays are in the fixed mindset because of this pandemic. They're stuck inside their house. They can't do what they want. They're fixed, literally. And as a result, their mindset is also fixed. Also, and I know we're talking about health and fitness here, but there is an entrepreneur, a venture capitalist. His name is Naval Ravikant, and he believes that the three most important things, and he was one of the original investors of Uber. He believes the three most important things that we have as humans: we have wealth, we have happiness, and we have our health. And all three of those things they intertwine with each other. So if one suffers, the other one is going to suffer. If we are in a fixed mindset in one aspect of our lives, it's going to be difficult for us to be in a pure growth mindset in something else. For example, if we're not happy with our job, it's going to be really difficult for us to be happy with the way we look.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about the dynamics of the growth and the fixed mindset. But one thing that a lot of people have to realize, I think, and this is something that all of us are learning, is that the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, where did that come from? Because you're working with kids right now, you notice that some of them are in growth or fixed mindset. Where does this fixed mindset come from? And my theory, and I think this is the theory that Carol Dweck and her fellow researchers have tentatively concluded, is that our early childhood experiences, most notably, our brains are the most malleable from when we're born to up until we're about 3 years old. And then from 3 to 7 are also very critical periods. Some researchers predict that 90% of our personality is created by the time we're 7 years old. So how we act as a 7-year-old will accurately predict how we act, not 100%, as an 18-year-old or a 25-year-old. And then on top of that, our frontal cortex, our most complex part of the brain, doesn't even fully form until an average of 25, 26 years old. So a lot of us, we're not even able to delineate between what rational and emotional thought processes are until we're a quarter of a century years old. So where does this fixed and the growth mindset come from? Childhood experiences, what our parents said to us when we were younger. Imagine if you were born a little bit heavier or larger and you had a really hearty appetite. Your parents would look at you. Your parents are thin. Now, I'm not talking about your parents. I'm talking a hypothetical person.
The scenario, yeah.
Right. The parents are thin, but their child is a little bit hefty. It's a little bit larger. How would the parent probably talk to this child? This is the first child. The parent's probably going to, I don't know, maybe think a little bit weirdly of the child. Man, this child, you eat a lot. Like you're kind of big. You're kind of fat, right? These early impressions with the parents would have a lasting impact. And what about, and I don't want to keep going on, but because I want to know your thoughts about this. What about what our parents say to us
Yeah.
shape our adult personalities. Like, what's your experience with? And I don't want you to throw your parents under the bus here because I don't know really what's going on. I have my own experience with my parents,
Yeah.
but if there's anything for you to share to shed light on how early childhood experiences could shape somebody's mindset, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that it was my parents because my parents were never like, "Oh, no, 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 you definitely can't do something." But I feel like it was more society, right? So in my eyes, and I was actually talking about this with my parents recently, when I was growing up, I felt like I was taught that, you grow up and you get a job, and it's not because you actually want that job or you like that job, but it's just because you need money and you need to be an adult. And I don't, even know necessarily where I got that from. Maybe society. Um, how I feel like so many people complain about their jobs. And so that is like one thing that I guess that I could say. And I feel like just being exposed to like different experiences when I was younger, I felt like maybe I was brought up to feel limited. And again, not necessarily by my parents, but maybe society and my environment around me made me feel like I was being brought up to have a more limited lifestyle in the sense that I could never um make hundreds of thousands of dollars each year, that I could never be super successful doing something. And really wasn't until like the past couple years that I kind of started to look around and I was like, wait, something's not right. Like something is not right with my life. Something's not right with everyone else's life that's around me. I'm like, why is no one freaking out right now? Like, why is no one doing something about this? And I feel like that's when like my mindset really started to change as the past couple years, but like definitely gearing towards like my later 20s. I kind of just had some like, like epiphanies. Like I wouldn't even say like a specific event, but like an epiphany where I was just like, I like woke up, like, whoa, what am I doing here? I really need to take charge of my life. But I feel like I was in a fixed mindset for so long. Like I could never be really strong because women aren't meant to be strong and that's not in my genetics. Or I could never try and start my own side business because you need money to do that. And, you went to school to be a teacher. Things like that, where, that's a fixed mindset. I could never. And then one day it was just like, no, I'm not taking that anymore. Like I'm going to believe in myself and kind of switch that off. But again, not 100% of a growth mindset. I still have times and there are still certain things that are like more fixed within me. For example, like you and I discussed a new set of macros and a calorie range for me last week. And I sat down after and I was like looking at the numbers and I was just like, I can't. And I was freaking out before I had even tried it, So I was like, I was limiting myself before I'd even actually tried it, and I'm like gearing up for days like, oh my gosh, come Monday, I'm going to start this new thing and I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm going to fail. And then Monday came and went and I was like, oh, this is actually really easy. This is great. I'm going to succeed. So I switched my mindset, but at first it was, but I 100% agree, trekking back to childhood, that I do think that our childhood does shape our mindsets. And again, it's not necessarily the parents. It could be a sibling. It could be someone else in your family. It could be a friend. It could be the school that they went to growing up, because I do feel like that was a factor for me. The town that they grew up in, and the things that they were exposed to. Did they play sports? Did they do dance? Any other club or activity? Those are all things that are going to shape you, and those are all things that are going to shape your mindset and the people that you're surrounded with. If everyone that you are surrounded with has a fixed mindset, chances are you're going to have a fixed mindset. But if you surround yourself with people that are interested in growing and are willing to admit when they make mistakes and want to improve and have more of a, freedom, then chances are you probably grew up with more of a growth mindset. So I don't think it's one single thing from childhood. I think it's a multitude of different ideals coming together.
It just goes to show you how important your environment is. Everything about your environment, parents, your guardians, your friends, your school, your community. I remember when I became a personal trainer. I became a personal trainer in 2011. So that was what, 9 years ago? That was 9 years almost. I became a personal trainer in 2011 in February. So it would be 10 years in February. When I first became a personal trainer, how was I? I think I was 24 years old. I was having an identity crisis.
Hmm.
I was thinking to myself, why do I want to be a personal trainer? This job, this is nothing. I can't believe people would pay me to get in shape. Like people
Yeah.
are lazy. People are lazy. They can't get themselves to get in shape. I did it by myself. Why can't other people do it? Like how can people be
Hmm.
willing to pay me hundreds of dollars a month to work them out? It was definitely a fixed mindset because it blocked me off from other perspectives in life. And I'm thinking to myself, where did that come from? Why did I think being a personal trainer was not a respectable profession? People were willing to pay me money. And if health is one of the main components of us and happiness, and even if somebody's really healthy like you, getting stronger and going to the gym could lead to happiness because your health is already
Yeah.
covered. But looking better, feeling better, moving better could lead to happiness, better happiness. And it never really occurred to me until later on, as I'm reading more about various philosophies, psychology, behavioral science. Thinking back to it though, growing up, I grew up to pretty much a single mother. I didn't meet my American white stepfather until I was about 8 years old, and he was certainly in a fixed mindset. His life was
Yeah.
already set for him. He had retired from the military. He was in the Baltimore Police Department. Like he didn't really need to grow anymore. But my mother, she came from South Korea. She immigrated from South Korea, didn't know how to speak English, uneducated. She barely finished high school, and she was really poor. So we lived in Baltimore City. We lived on top of a bodega. And shortly after she gave birth to me, my real father, my biological father, eloped with her best friend and
Mm.
left us by ourselves. And she had this store to run. And there was me. So whenever she was working at the store, at the bodega, tending the customers, cooking, I was on her back. It was a really difficult life for her, and she was resentful for a very, very long time. I don't know if she was resentful to me, but the fact of the matter is, she wasn't able to give me the attention. Obviously, she's a single mother. She wasn't able to give me the attention that an, a, an intact family unit could give their child.
Yeah.
But that, I don't think that was really the kicker, because I know plenty of kids who came up from single family households and they're fine. And I would think that I'm fine now, but I think what was the kicker was, for me, for a long time, I thought my mother was a hypocrite, because here she is, uneducated, poor, didn't know how to speak English. She didn't seem to give a lick about my education because I went to the worst schools. I got bullied. She didn't seem to care about me getting bullied. I would come home with bruises, cuts. I would get jumped almost every single day because I was the only Asian in a whatever school, right? And then, even then, she wanted me to be either a lawyer, a doctor, or a dentist. Why? Because her brother's three kids was a lawyer, dentist, and an attorney. So she expected me to be an attorney to
Yeah.
uphold the family name. And I'm thinking to myself, here's the thing. You don't send me to, I'm thinking back to it now, and I'm thinking it from an outside perspective, right? Like how could that lead to a fixed mindset? One, you don't put your child in an environment where they can challenge themselves, right? Two, even if they feel challenged, they should have the resources, because if you put a child like me who comes from a disadvantaged background into an elite school and you don't have the resources to, and I'm already starting behind the eight ball, I come into that school with a fixed mindset, and then I get pummeled by academics. And what happens? I get even more into a fixed mindset because I feel like a failure, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was really the start of when I started to believe man, I'm a freaking idiot. I'm a failure. And as a
Mhm.
result of me thinking that way, I mainly pursued things that I knew I would be good at. And if I did something new, if I wasn't good at it right away, I would quit.
Yeah. Same.
That's, yeah, that's that fixed
Mhm.
mindset. And
Yeah.
like you said, I can't pinpoint any particular event that led me to have a fixed mindset. Even now, I'm sure both you and I were like, I'm sure, again, this is that inner critic talking. We want to do well in the things that we're going to spend our time, energy, and money on. We're constantly battling this inner critic, and we're constantly battling this fixed mindset. But I think what differentiates between people who have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset is, and I think this is where the difference is, I think it's the way somebody is either praised or criticized when they're
Mhm.
undergoing challenges they may not be familiar with.
Yeah.
You've probably heard me say this. I love this saying. I don't know where I got it from. I'm not going to say I made it up because most of what I say are not made up by me. There's a saying that I like. It goes something like this: don't let praise go to the head and don't let criticism go to the heart. Right? Because what will too much praise do to somebody? It will make them overconfident. It will turn them into a grandiose narcissist. And what will put them in a fixed mindset is if somebody is overconfident in one particular ability, they're probably going to avoid failure because they want to maintain their reputation as somebody who is really good at a particular thing. Right? Then if you over criticize somebody, what's going to happen? They're going to feel like a failure. They're going to feel like they don't measure up to anything. They're going to avoid challenges and tasks that would expose them. So in reality, you have two people who have either been overly praised or overly criticized, fixed mindset, demonstrating a couple of similarities. The first similarity would be they avoid failure
Mhm.
avoidance, and they're rigid in their approach. The key is how do we break them out of that failure avoidance and rigidity paradigm? And I think that is where I believe, I think that's where the magic happens. And, but I don't know how to make that happen on a systematic level. I saw your evolution over time. I saw your mindset changing over time. But I don't know exactly what I did or what we did together in order to make that happen. I could say, well, I made sure to not praise Pam on her natural innate abilities. I made sure not to boost her ego. I made sure to praise her efforts. And I made sure to praise her efforts in a specific context. Wow, Pam, you're getting better at your swings. That's a really good job. I like that effort. Last week, you only did swings. Last week, you did the same weight, but you
Mhm.
didn't look as comfortable. Your form looked much tighter today. I can see that you're putting in the work. Oh, Pam, you took my recommendations, my diet recommendations, you put it into practice. In the beginning, you were a little bit hesitant and apprehensive about it because you didn't know what to expect, but you put the work in, you're seeing results now. Let's keep it going. I don't know if that would lead to a growth mindset. I think you're at the front lines because praise or criticism, I think, would have a much more dramatic impact on an elementary school child than it would an adult, right? Because an adult can rationalize their way out of it, but a child
Yeah.
would probably take your criticism or your praise at face value and they would see how that matches up to their current identity.
Mhm.
Does it reinforce
Yeah.
my current identity or does it go against it? Like what's going on right now? My parents say one thing about me, but my teacher says another thing about me. What is the truth?
Yeah. I
Did
I
I
I
get
love everything that you said.
I don't know if I got into the
Really.
weeds too much there.
No, no, I do. I think I love everything that you said, especially when you talked about like your own childhood. I guess my biggest question that you could answer, after this would be how did you break out of that fixed mindset, because for myself, it's actually funny that you're talking about like when you and I training together, my mindset changing, because I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I was like, what was it? What was it that really changed my mind? Like honestly, I really do give you most of the credit for how I am as a person now, because I feel like you were really the start of getting me to open up and evolve as a person. And it started with my mindset. And now,
All
can I
right. How much
say
do I
like
owe you after this?
what particular thing it was? No, you're right. I can't. And everything that you're saying to me, that's exactly how you treated me when we were in the gym. But what I think it was is because A, you never forced me to do anything, but B, I was at the point in my life where I wanted to change, right? So when I was a kid, much like you, I had more of a fixed mindset. I quit every single sport or activity that I had tried because like something got in the way at some point. And I think of the potential that I had if I had kept up even one or two of those skills that I was learning when I was younger, playing an instrument, playing a sport, dance. But by the time that I came to you, even though I was way more in a fixed mindset, I really wanted to change, and I had no idea, the amount that I would change with the years following. And you were also with me through some pretty pivotal years of my life, some, experiences that I went through and situations that I had to deal with. So, you have been with me through some of the lowest points of my life. But you never gave up on me and my mindset and what I needed to do. Um, and I think that makes a difference, because you had touched on that before, that if you have someone that's like, no, 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 you can't do that. For example, if you're talking about teaching and you have a parent that's like, you can't do that, you can't be that, and then you have someone that's like, no, 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 you can. um I think that definitely has a plays a role. But yeah, what I want to know from you, because for me, breaking out of my fixed mindset was starting to go to you and seeing the evolution with my progress. But what was it for you that had you break out of that fixed mindset?
For me, and I think this is the case for a lot of people. I think it's really difficult to break out of the fixed mindset by yourself. I think you need help.
Yeah.
My help was a little bit more indirect. We're going to talk about you, and I'm just going to reverse engineer it. You helped me break out of my fixed mindset because
I was annoying.
when what's that? What's that?
I was annoying.
You're not annoying. Annoying is not the right word.
Yeah.
Challenging is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just talking about this. How do
Yeah.
you break out of fixed mindset? How do you get into a growth mindset? You put yourself in a challenging situation and you do your best to succeed. Do you succeed? You don't know. The fact that I was with you during challenging situations in your life, and we were talking pretty intimately. It wasn't just a personal, it was more of a friend thing. And
Yeah.
whether or not what I said actually helped, I don't know. But the fact that you weathered the storm and then you continued to train with me was enough validation for me that I didn't screw it up,
Yeah.
right? I did not screw it up, because if I did screw it up, you're paying me. You have every incentive to be like, you know what? I feel worse now. I'm just gonna do this. Like, right? Like, there comes a certain point where it's beyond, I feel bad for this guy. I want to keep paying him because he's another guy, he's a father. There comes a point where you just say to yourself, you know what? He's not good for me anymore. I'm gonna do this on my own. But you didn't. You continued. And I think reverse engineering everything, when I look back at all my relationships with my clients, the clients I succeeded with, the clients I failed with, I
Mm-hmm.
approached every relationship as, where did I go wrong and where am I doing well?
Yeah.
This client is still staying with me, even though they have their ups and downs. They're still staying with me. This client didn't end up staying with me. What happened? Did I say something wrong? Did I have the wrong approach? I think getting out of the fixed mindset is really difficult to do by yourself. I think you
Yeah,
really need help.
I agree.
I think that's why Alcoholics Anonymous is so successful. Why the retention rate and the sober rate for Alcoholics Anonymous is so successful, because you know for a fact that every week or every 2 weeks or however long, you're going to go to a support group and people are going to encourage you. People are going to support you. You can voice your concerns knowing it's probably going to be free of judgment and criticism, and they're going to accept you and all of your faults. I
Yeah.
think I think that is what's really key at helping somebody break out of a fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like you said, you have to be in a stage in your life where you want to break out of a fixed mindset. If you want to stay in a fixed mindset, I don't think no matter how much money you want to spend, it's not going to help.
Yeah. So what was it for you? Because you still didn't answer it. You said
know
your
what's
help was very
interesting?
direct.
I think the combination of reading mindset, doing research,
Yeah.
working with clients, you know what really helped me, and this is more of a self-centered way. I don't think this is good for everyone. I don't think this is good for somebody who wants to really take care of their family or wants to be a compassionate, emotional, and sensitive parent. But ancient Stoic philosophy, Stoicism. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Stoicism is not about being emotionless. Stoicism is about being balanced. And there are
Yeah.
4 cardinal virtues in Stoicism. We'll just go through Stoicism really fast. But I read a lot about Stoicism. There are 4 really big Stoics. There's Seneca, there's Epictetus, there's Rufus, and then there's Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. Seneca was a senator. Epictetus was a slave, and Rufus was just a normal person. The 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism are courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. It's a really good philosophy for gaining personal independence from dysregulated emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's what you would call philosophical pessimism. They have a lot of exercise in Stoicism where you're essentially trying to imagine the worst thing that could happen. Basically, you're preparing for the worst. That's essentially what Stoicism is about. And hardening yourself and becoming emotionally and mentally resilient. It's not really, if Stoicism is all somebody wants to do, then I don't think they'll make a compassionate parent. They could, but Stoicism, the ancient Stoics, people who practiced Stoicism back in the day, were not the best parents, right?
Yeah.
They were not the best parents. They were usually absent from their child's life, which is evidenced by Seneca wasn't really a great father. Epictetus didn't have any kids. And Marcus Aurelius, his son, Commodus. Have you ever seen Gladiator? Do you know what that
Yes.
movie is?
Not in a very long time, but yeah.
Okay, if you watch the beginning scene of Gladiator, the beginning scene is the death of Marcus Aurelius
Mm.
and his son Commodus, who is the tyrannical emperor. Commodus is his son, and his son ends up being one of the reasons that Rome,
Yeah.
that empire just crumbled, right? But that really helped me a lot. In addition to working with, and what's interesting is, working with female clients is what really helped me the most,
Mm-hmm.
because most of my female clients usually came to me for issues outside of training. But anyways,
Yeah.
enough about me. Well, enough about like what I don't really know. I think it was a combination of reading about mindset, being aware of what a fixed growth mindset is, being aware of, okay, am I in a fixed mindset right now or am I in a growth mindset right now? And sometimes it may be like you, placing myself in situations where I do have to push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
Not so
Yeah.
much where
Absolutely.
I know I see, for you, even though you've never ran a half marathon before, we both knew you had the strength to run the half
Mhm.
marathon. Somebody who is going straight from the couch to the road, they're probably not going to be able to do a half marathon. But somebody like you, who you have a history of training, you can run. You ran before this. You never ran 13 miles, but you know that you can run 6 miles pretty easily. So what's six more
Yeah.
miles? You knew that you had the potential to do it. So I think doing things that push you outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but still within your skill set, I think is
Mhm.
really important. Getting support or linking up with people, like-minded individuals who can speak to you in that growth mindset terminology, who doesn't just shower you with empty, hollow praise, right?
Yeah.
I think that'll help. And then do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say, agree with everything you said. But to kind of, because we're kind of secluded right now from a lot of people, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
that support system isn't as strong. And like I said, like you and I can't train together right now. Like that's gone for me. Um, some things that I have done in quarantine to continue having that growth mindset is kind of like what you said, reading, right? So you read certain books that helped you. Um, I read certain books that help me. In particular, have been reading a lot of books by very successful women, right? And how they broke through these barriers of what was expected of them, and what they were able to become. And that kind of has helped me grow, like, oh, they pushed outside of their comfort zones by doing X, Y, and Z. Why can't I? Um, and then I also do listen to a podcast called Mindset Mentor, Rob Dial, if anyone wants to listen to him. It's all mindset. And he does give you advice of how you can transform your mind and your life, and the things that you practice on a day-to-day basis. And I do think that that has helped as well during this time of quarantine where you can't exactly do what you would normally be doing.
I think journaling can also help.
And I journal as
And
well.
yes, I think journaling can help, and
Yes.
deliberate journaling can help. Where in my newsletter, I write about how if you're going to journal, the best way to probably journal is to journal at night and journal in the morning. You journal at night, you basically try to review what happened that day. What happened today? What went well? What didn't go well? How can I improve?
Yeah.
And then in the morning, you kind of preview your day. What are some things I'm going to work on? If a challenge comes up today, what challenge, what problems am I anticipating? And what can I do to confront them? What can I do to manage them as best as possible? So I think if you preview the day and prepare yourself, that could help in terms of
Yeah.
growth mindset.
I definitely agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Journaling,
Yeah,
reading, and listening to others that have like a different mindset. If you don't have that support system, you can easily find, um, like a podcast to listen to or something, that will kind of help you out. So, and
no, I
time
think that's
and
good.
patience, time and patience too.
No, I think that's good. And I think that's good. And before we move to the next topic, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the mindset, the growth mindset, there is this thing called the false growth mindset. Have you
Mhm.
heard about this?
I have not actually.
Okay, so the false growth mindset is when somebody tries to practice growth mindset in vain. It's essentially what it is, where they work hard and when they work hard for the sake of working hard. Whereas the growth mindset is really focused on helping somebody improve in a particular skill or in a particular area. For example, if you're a musician or you're a teacher, you want to become a better teacher. You're going to do continuing education credits, or you're going to practice the piano. You're going to learn a new score on the piano. You're going to do various things and get better at the piano, or become a better teacher, get better at communicating as a teacher, versus doing the same things over again and kind of giving yourself some praise. Be like, oh, I'm working hard at this. I'm getting better at this particular thing. Where Bruce Lee once said that he's not afraid of the person who knows 10,000 kicks. He's afraid of the person who knows one kick and practice that 10,000 times. Right. So I'm sure there is this mentality where if you really get good at the basics, it can help you build the foundations. Yeah. The idea behind the false growth mindset is people might take that a little bit too far. And instead of trying to figure out how they can improve in certain areas, they just hammer away at effort. They just work harder, like banging your head against a wall, and you're not going anywhere. The wall, nothing is happening to the wall.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but yeah, anything else about
45 minutes later?
I know, 45. I think this is important, right? Like Rob Dial talks about mindset in every podcast, right? So what's 45 minutes?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, right?
Okay, next one. And this is a pet peeve of mine as a personal trainer.
I was just about to say this is something that I love to talk about because, people don't understand it.
You're right. So as a personal trainer, one of the things I did not like hearing in the beginning, I understood it. But then later on, as I became more of a proficient personal trainer, I realized that this is just kind of a scapegoat. When I talk to a client, or I hear another client talk to a personal trainer or something like that, and the client wants to lose weight and they're not losing weight, they can they or the personal trainer can rationalize it as, oh, well, maybe you're building muscle. Maybe you're building muscle. That's why you're not losing weight, because, you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Or something that I've also heard is muscle weighs more than fat. Muscle does not weigh more than fat. 1 pound of muscle, same thing as 1 pound of fat. Muscle takes up less room than fat does. Right? 30% less room. But to say that they weigh the same is wrong. A lot of times, most of the time when I run into something, and this is in a vast majority of cases, most of the time when I see somebody, they're not losing weight, and they try to rationalize with, oh, I'm building muscle at the same time. I'm like, let's break down your nutrition. Let's break down your diet. And 9 times out of 10, the nutrition is not where it should be in order for them to lose weight.
Yes.
And a lot of times there is no indication that they're building muscle, right? Some cases there might be, like like I'm not losing weight, but my clothes they fit a little bit better. And sometimes that's true, but when you spread it out over time, that's just kind of a fluke. Yeah. A lot of times that's not the case, right? But in some cases it is. But I would think in 9 tenths out of 10, it's not. So, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
So when I think of weight loss versus fat loss, I think that people sometimes they get confused, right? So, let's say someone comes to you and they're like, oh, I want to lose, you're like, what are your goals? And they're like, I want to lose 30 pounds. And they just start eating less and walking every day, and they're just doing cardio, right? And they're not really focusing on their protein intake or what their carbs are, their fats are, or the quality of that food nonetheless. And, they're not strength training. They're simply just, trying to eat in a certain bubble, and they're walking every day, and they're like, oh, I'm losing like 3 pounds a week, 2-3 pounds a week. And, for me, it's like trying to explain that's when you lose weight, right? That's calories in versus calories out. That's what you're focusing on. And again, you're not focusing on the macronutrients. You're not focusing on the proteins. You're not focusing on the fat. You're not focusing on the carbs. Most of the time when you're losing that weight, a lot of it's water weight, and some of it is also muscle, right? Because if you're not doing anything to try and like build that muscle or maintain that muscle with strength training, you're gonna lose water weight, you're gonna lose some of that muscle, and that's probably why you're seeing such a drastic change on the scale. It doesn't mean that you have lost 3 pounds of fat. It means that you've lost all this water weight. And what I try to explain to people is that the difference when you are losing fat, right, is yes, is some of that going to be water and bloat? Absolutely. I mean, you and I, when we're talking about myself, like we know that right now I am losing a lot of water weight, a lot of bloat. But it's really dialing into your nutrition, right? Figuring out how many calories do I need to be eating a day to be in a calorie deficit? All right. So am I getting quality protein? Am I eating quality carbs and fat? How much of that am I eating, right? So you and I had a discussion last week about my macros, and we adjusted them because we saw that, something wasn't adding up. The nutrition wasn't adding up. And we had to adjust the macros, the carbs, the fat. And I'm not saying that everyone should 100% track your macros, because that's not even the approach that you and I took from the beginning. But when you want to see fat loss, not only do you have to be in a calorie deficit and focus on those macronutrients, but you also need to be strength training. And I'm not saying don't do cardio, because you absolutely need to be doing cardio. I do cardio all the time, but my form of cardio isn't doing 10 hours of HIIT a week. You want to be sure that you're strength training. They recommend like 2 to 4 days a week, and then throwing in some low resistance cardio. So that you're not completely like breaking your body. And so for me, when I think about weight loss versus fat loss, that's what I think of, is that when you're losing weight, most likely you're in some kind of deficit, maybe. But again, you're not focusing on what you're eating. It's only calories in versus calories out. A lot of that's water. Some of it's muscle. You're not doing anything to maintain that muscle. But when you're losing fat, you're more dialed into your nutrition. You're in a calorie deficit, and you're maintaining or even building muscle through strength training, or resistance training, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think science is coming around to that now, where in the beginning, the prevailing wisdom was, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to do high reps, you want to do lots of cardio, you want to do because with the calorie burn, you're going to add that calorie burn on top of the calorie deficit, and it's going to help you lose more weight. But as research comes out and starts to eliminate some of the issues with these, losing weight in and of itself is fine for people who are heavy and could benefit from losing weight from a metabolic standpoint. But if you're healthy, just losing weight across the board might not be the best option. You want to lose fat.
Yeah.
You want to lose fat, because for a vast majority of people who are heavy, just losing 5% of their body weight, 5%. Somebody is 100 pounds overweight, and obviously being overweight and being 100 pounds overweight is a very subjective thing. But let's say somebody is diabetic, they have high blood pressure, they lose 5% of their current body weight because they are heavy. And as a result of them being heavy, they have these metabolic issues. Their diabetes and their hypertension will improve simply by losing 5% of their body weight, irregardless of if it's made up of muscle or water or fat. It will improve, right? Because for somebody with medical issues, their body is in a state of inflammation, and losing weight, reducing the amount of fat by 5%, will reduce the amount of inflammation in the body and will stress the body out less. But if you're healthy, you want to lose fat. You want to lose fat because in a healthy person, loss of muscle has more of a detrimental effect than loss of fat does, right? And research is coming around that strength training, low to moderate, sometimes high volume strength training a couple of times a week with strategic bouts of aerobic exercise is probably the best thing to combine with a smart and personalized nutrition plan for maximum fat loss, right?
Yeah.
If you're going through maximum fat loss and you're doing the strength training anywhere, but like you said, anywhere between 2 to 4 times a week, and it's a smart strength training program, You will lose fat and water, and you will not lose any muscle or very minimal muscle. But what is low to moderate volume? When you do big exercises, squats, deadlifts, bench press, chin-ups, rows, and you're not doing like 15, 20, 30 repetitions. This isn't a bar class. I like bar, and I know some very fine people who do bar, but this is, you're trying to go as heavy as you can with the proper form, and you're doing anywhere between like 6 to 12 repetitions.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you test your metal, go a little bit heavier, see, like, you know what? I want to see how strong I am. And maybe you'll do 1 rep or 2 rep or 3 reps or 5 reps. And you just want to test your strength. And that's absolutely fine too. Because when it comes to losing fat and the healthy weights, you don't want to be in too much of a drastic and aggressive calorie deficit, because then you'll lose muscle.
Mm-hmm.
The good thing about strength training, and this is something that you and I have talked about, and we've spoken about this, and you asked me, why are we doing such low reps? It's because with strength training, you're still stimulating your muscles, but you're not burning that many calories. And to a lot of people, that might sound counterintuitive. Well, I want to burn more calories. I'm trying to lose weight. And if you're saying that a calorie deficit and burning calories is the best way to lose weight, why wouldn't I want to burn more calories through exercise? For the precise reason that if you burn too many calories, you will burn off muscle. You'll burn off muscle, and recovery will take a hit. And if you can't recover, what's going to happen? Your body's going to go into a state of inflammation and catabolism, where your muscles and everything else is starting to break down. Right? You're going to be in a shitty mood. Your motivation is going to be rock bottom, and you're going to hate exercise. You're going to hate your life, and you're going to be just an unpleasant person to be around in general. Right? Which is why the strength training is really important, and which is why it was such a staple in your program. So then, how quickly should we lose fat? Precision nutrition and being a registered dietitian, it doesn't make me privy to fitness nutrition. That's not what they taught us at school, which is why I am precision nutrition certified, like you are. Mm-hmm. They recommend anywhere between 0.5 to 1.5% of your body weight, right? Per month. It's very conservative, depending on where you are, right? Like if you lost 1 pound of fat a 1 pound of fat a month, in a year, you'd be shredded, like really shredded. You'd lose 12 pounds of fat. You'd be shredded. It would be absolutely insane. So the speed of weight loss, I think, matters. What you're doing in order to lose the weight matters. Like the composition of that weight loss matters. And of course, the exercise is just one piece of the equation. How much of the pie does exercise represent? We don't know. People say, oh, exercise is 10%, it's 20%, diet is 80, 90%. We don't know, because genetics can really determine how somebody responds. But I would say that nutrition plays at least 50% part on people's fat loss efforts.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, kind of circling back to, how I know that works is because when I first started working with you, I was super skeptical, because we did again, I lift very heavy, and I have you to thank for that. But I was kind of like, are we really, like, is this okay? Like, I'm only doing 6 reps, and you gave me this really heavy weight, and you're telling me I don't really need to be doing spin class 5 days a week, and I don't need to be on the Stairmaster for an hour 3 days a week. Like, what's going on? And that first year that I was with you, I think that's probably when I changed the most. Like, my body changed the most, because I had the most weight to lose. But I really cut down on my cardio. And again, I ran a half marathon at some point. So, besides that, I really cut down on the cardio, and I upped my strength training. I think before I came to you, it was probably like 2 days a week. Now I'm at 4 days a week. And my cardio now is just walking. It really is just walking. Because again, I don't go to a gym. So it's walking however many days a week I can walk, 4 or 5 days a week, 6 days sometimes. But, even when I was going to the gym, it was just that. It was the walking. And then obviously at the end of some workouts, you do like a metabolic type of thing, sprinting. sometimes, or sometimes I would do stuff with weights, but I think that people really do get it twisted when they're thinking about losing weight, and I think it's because people want to do it in the quickest amount of time, and people get instant gratification from seeing the number go down on the scale. And I'm not saying that the scale isn't valid, because it certainly is. And I have had so many battles with the scale because I know how valid it actually is. But it's not the only thing that we need to be paying attention to. And we do need to be paying attention to it. But what I mean by that is you could have someone that's like my height, right? We'll say my height. And they're 25% body fat and they weigh 150 pounds. And then you have someone who's my height and they're 150 pounds and they're 30% body fat. They weigh the same. They're the same height, but you're going to get two completely different kinds of looks. Like I have pictures on my phone. I need to start posting some of these from me when I weighed the same, right? I have a picture of myself from like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe, when I was training with you. And then I have a picture of myself from like 5 years ago, and I'm in a bathing suit because I'm trying to do like before pictures. Pretty much same weight. I would say like 3-4 pound difference, but totally different body. I think I've showed you the picture before, like totally different body. Like I'm so much leaner in the second photo. Even though like my weight like was in that range still, I was just so much more leaner because I lost fat. And I did that through dialing into my nutrition, focusing on like quality protein, quality carbs, quality fat, making sure I wasn't getting too much of any, making sure I was in some kind of calorie deficit. And again, I didn't track my macros. I didn't start tracking my macros until March. So when I was with you that whole time, I never did. But we focused on like the kind of food that I was eating and what I was eating and how much of it I was eating. And it was the strength training and like going a little bit lighter on the cardio, like not doing these ridiculous HIIT sessions and cycling sessions. And listen, if that's what you love, then, don't give that up. But, just because you dropped 5 pounds on the scale and you did it because you ate 1,200 calories a day and you went walking, you're hurting yourself more because, like you said, it has like detrimental effects. You're losing muscle and all it is water and you're just landing with the smaller version of yourself, and you're more likely to put that weight back on too, because it's not really real. I don't want to say it's fake weight, but it's not the kind of weight that you want to be losing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too, which brings us to the next point. When somebody wants to lose weight, lose fat, I'm not going to tell. I don't really care about losing fat. If somebody says I don't really care about losing fat, I just want to lose weight, I was like, all right, well, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out where can I find that balance between making sure this person still feels good, but also is really happy with their results. And I might have to compromise a little bit. I might have to go against my philosophy a little bit, and that's absolutely okay, because as a coach, we have to be adaptive, right? And of course, this is within a realm of reason with me. If somebody's like, I don't really care. I don't care what you want for me. I don't care what you think I need. I want this. I was like, you know what? If you want that and I don't think it's reasonable, I don't think it's good for you, we're just going to have to part ways. But for the most part, I've never really had to do that. If somebody wants to lose weight or somebody wants to go on this journey like you, there has to be phases. If for you, we didn't really go through phases that much because we were just in the process. And we realized early on that you wanted results, but you also didn't want to obsess about the numbers.
Yeah.
I've worked with people who obsessed about the numbers, and I couldn't really peel them away from the numbers. They always had to feel like they were making progress in something. They were a lot more outcome driven. Whereas for you, this is something you really enjoy doing, which is why you're a nutrition coach right now. You like the process. You liked going to the gym. Sure,
Yeah.
there were a few days where there were some times you're like, oh my God, I'm not motivated. Work really sucks. It was stressful. I don't really feel like going to the gym, but you dragged yourself into the gym anyway.
Yeah.
Some people have to go through phases. In other words, in order for them to see results, they need to do 6 to 8 weeks of a pure weight loss program, 6 to 8 weeks of a pure strength program, 6 to 8 weeks of an endurance program, 6 to 8 weeks of a muscle gaining program. They need to know exactly what they're doing. Otherwise, they're going to fall off the bandwagon. They're going to lose motivation because they're hanging on by such a thin thread. They're hanging on by outcomes, and that is usually not a good thing to do, right? But that's also probably, if in retrospect, if we would have gone that route, you would have lost weight faster. In retrospect,
Yeah.
maybe that's a mistake. Maybe that's a mistake I made. If we would have said, you know what, Pam, we're going to do the strength training, but we're going to be a lot more aggressive with your nutrition so we can help you lose as much weight, as much fat as possible in the beginning. And then we'll recalibrate in 6, 8, 12 weeks and see where we are and decide if we want to go into a different phase. Because the human body is really terrible at multitasking. It's not good at doing multiple different things at once. No matter what we tell ourselves, we're not really good at multitasking. I mean, there are some things we're good at multitasking with. Like, for example, I can wave my hands and do gestures while I'm talking. That's part of multitasking, right? But I can't text and drive at the same time. That would be really dangerous. When it comes to metabolic processes, the body's always doing many different things, but two things the body really does not like doing at the same time is building muscle and losing fat. It takes a really long time. And as you said, it took you a couple of years for your body to be completely different. And there were only a few pound difference. There was only a few pound difference. Somebody could lose that 3 to 4 pounds in a month, but they won't look as good as you after those couple of years, because in the process of them just strictly losing weight and fat, they're not going to build hardly any muscle.
Yeah. Agree with that. Very, very much. Yeah. So you basically
agreed that I screwed up in the beginning. You basically agreed that I screwed up in the beginning. Thanks, Pam.
No. I don't. No, I actually wanted to say that I disagree. I disagree with you on that, because I don't think that I would have been ready for that. Because if you're talking to me now, yeah, now, if you were like, Pam, like, I need you to do like 1,000 push-ups every single day and you need to eat this amount, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to try it. But back then, 3 years ago, I don't think that I was ready. I don't think that was the smart approach. You took the approach with me that you felt was best. And that approach is what worked. And I evolved over time, and I was able to handle more challenging things over time. It would be like now, if I had a client who doesn't have experience with weighing their food, or, because remember when I met you too, I wasn't weighing my food. I didn't have a food scale. None of that, never tracked a day in my life. So we did those things over time. But if you had given that to me, right off the bat, Pam, go buy a scale. Here are your macros. I probably would have failed, and it also took me like a long time to learn how to weigh my food and track it and use my FitnessPal. I only use my FitnessPal to track my food. That's all. I don't use it as like anything else. But it just would have been too overwhelming.
I felt like there was a point of redemption here. Thank you, Pam.
Well, because no, I'm not talking about you, but a lot of people are like, oh, my FitnessPal is junk. Like, you shouldn't listen to it. And yes, to that extent, I agree. And then they say the only thing that you should do is you can track your food on there. So that's what I do. I only track my food.
That's probably a topic I think that would be a good topic for another thing. Like, how much should you do in the beginning? How much should you do? Should you go all in? Or should you take it slow, but take it step by step? We're an hour over. I wanted to talk about the inner critic, but I think we're going to save this for another episode. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we did.
just to recap, we talked a handful about the fixed and the growth mindset. We talked about what could possibly lead to the fixed and the growth mindset. Now, I am not an expert by any means. I do not know Carol Dweck's material inside and out. However, I think you and I have a good understanding, a good enough understanding to speak on it.
Yeah.
And as coaches, we have to be more aware that of self-determination theory, because clients are not just coming to us for motivation. Clients are coming to us primarily because they might not know it, but they want to know what they're capable of doing. They want to know if they're capable of motivating themselves. Why? Because many people nowadays believe that motivating yourself is the key to long-lasting change. You can't rely on somebody for the rest of your life, right? Although Alcoholics Anonymous might be a stark contrast or a stark antithesis to that. But I think that's less about relying on somebody and more about being part of a community. I think that's very different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a growth mindset to happen, if applicable, finding a support group, like you said, reading the right books, reading probably memoirs and biographies, autobiographies of people who have overcome a lot of hardship, like you said, will be really helpful, because it can give people perspective on what somebody went through in order to overcome and to become successful, for them to find meaning in their lives. Because how many people nowadays actually can say their life has purpose? I think it's really difficult, right? And we're young. We still don't know what our life's purpose is. Maybe we'll learn later on. But also understanding, it's fluid. You can't be in a growth mindset the whole time. And you can't be in a fixed mindset the whole time. You have to know when to recognize, are you in a growth mindset? Are you in a fixed mindset? Journaling can help, where you're reviewing your day and you're previewing your day. And I think those can help.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, dude.
Yep, fat loss over weight loss.
Yes, fat loss
Very
over weight
important.
loss. Very important. You want to make sure you are resistance training, low to moderate volume. You want to be careful about burning too many calories through exercise in conjunction with a calorie deficit. Otherwise, you're going to shock your body and stress your body out too much. It's going to make weight loss very difficult.
Yep.
You might crash and burn. You might lose motivation. You also have to be very wary of the recovery. And I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Awesome.
But cool, Pam. So this is David of Strong by Lee and Pam, powered by Pam. We have the scrolling marquee down at the bottom, David at strongbylee.com and pt61889@gmail.com. If anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns for us, message us, please, and we will get back to you. All right. So signing off here and out. Until next time, everybody. Be strong and powerful.